My name is Jiang Chan, and I am 62 years old this year. Throughout my life, I believed that I had experienced the full spectrum of life's challenges and emotions. From the highs of joy to the depths of sorrow, I thought there was little left in this world that could shake me. However, today, as I went to pick up my grandson from school for the first time, I encountered a situation that completely caught me off guard, leaving me questioning everything I thought I knew. It was a bright, sunny afternoon when I arrived at the kindergarten, my heart filled with anticipation. I had always looked forward to the day I would start picking up my grandson, Xiao Wei, from school. I imagined the joy on his face as he ran towards me, his tiny arms outstretched, ready to be scooped up into a warm embrace. But instead of the joyful reunion I had envisioned, I found myself standing in the school's front office, staring blankly at the young female teacher in front of me. "Excuse me, I'm here to pick up my grandson, Xiao Wei," I said, smiling politely. The teacher frowned slightly, flipping through the roster in her hand. "Xiao Wei?" she repeated, her brow furrowing deeper. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jiang, but we don't have a student by that name here. Could you have mistaken the school?" Her words hit me like a bolt of lightning. For a moment, I stood there, stunned, my mind struggling to process what she had just said. How could this be? I distinctly remembered my son, Zhang Yong, telling me that my grandson attended this kindergarten. There was no way I had made a mistake. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed my son's number. My heart raced as I waited for him to pick up, and when his voice finally came through the line, I could hear the concern in his tone. "Dad, what's wrong?" Zhang Yong asked, his voice filled with worry. "Yong, I'm here to pick up Xiao Wei, but the teacher says there's no such student. Could it be that I got the wrong school?" I tried hard to keep my voice calm, but the fear and confusion I felt were unmistakable. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line before Zhang Yong replied, his voice tinged with urgency. "Dad, don't worry. I'll be there right away." 10 minutes later, Zhang Yong came running to the kindergarten gate, panting heavily. His face was full of anxiety and unease, which only deepened my sense of dread. The teacher, who had been waiting with me, breathed a sigh of relief as she saw him approach. "Mr. Zhang, your son is here," she said, her tone noticeably more relaxed. "There might be some misunderstanding." Zhang Yong took a deep breath, turning to the teacher with an apologetic smile. "Teacher, I'm sorry. It was our oversight. My son's name is Lin, not Zhang." When I heard those words, it felt as if the ground had shifted beneath my feet. Lin? Why is his surname Lin? How could my grandson have a different surname? At that moment, a tender voice called out, "Dad, Grandpa!" I turned around mechanically, and there he was, a little boy running towards us with a big smile on his face. He looked exactly like Zhang Yong did when he was little, the same bright eyes and innocent expression. But why? Why didn't he have the surname Zhang? A buzzing sound filled my ears as I struggled to make sense of what was happening. Zhang Yong quickly supported me, whispering urgently, "Dad, let's go home and talk." Seeing the anxious look in my son's eyes, I suddenly realized that beneath this calm surface, there was a secret I knew nothing about, a secret that could very well change the dynamics of our family forever. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "Yes, we need to go home and have a good talk," I said, my voice trembling. But for some reason, a strong impulse surged within me, a desire to flee this place immediately, to escape back to my familiar hometown. At that moment, I felt like an outsider, standing on the sidelines of my own life, watching an absurd drama unfold, unsure whether I even had any lines left in this play. On the way home, the atmosphere in the car was so heavy it was suffocating. Xiao Wei sat in the back seat, innocently humming a song, completely oblivious to the storm brewing around him. Zhang Yong gripped the steering wheel tightly, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, occasionally glancing at me in the rearview mirror. I stared out the window, watching the scenery whiz by, my thoughts spinning as fast as the car's wheels. In 1984, I married my wife, Li Chong, in that small county town. Back then, we were full of hope and expectation for the future. 3 years later, Zhang Yong was born, bringing endless joy to our lives. To give our son the best life, Chong and I lived frugally, pouring all our energy and resources into him. We wanted to provide him with every opportunity, every advantage that we had never had. "Dad, we're home." Zhang Yong's voice pulled me back to reality. We walked into the house silently. Chong was busy in the kitchen, but hearing the commotion, she poked her head out and asked, "You're back? Was Xiao Wei good?" Seeing the gloomy expression on my face, she immediately realized something was wrong and quickly came out. "Mom, take Xiao Wei to wash his hands first," Zhang Yong signaled to Chong with a glance. Chong understood, taking Xiao Wei's hand and leading him to the bathroom. Only Zhang Yong and I were left in the living room, an uneasy silence hanging in the air. "Dad, I have something to tell you," Zhang Yong began, his voice trembling slightly as he summoned the courage to speak. I looked up, my gaze piercing as I stared at him. "Speak. I'm listening." Zhang Yong took a deep breath, his voice barely above a whisper. "Actually, when Xiao Wei was born, we named him Lin Wei. He took his mother's surname." Hearing those words, I felt as if my heart had been dealt a heavy blow. Even though I had mentally prepared myself at the kindergarten gate, hearing my son admit it still caused me intense pain. "Why?" I asked, struggling to control my emotions, but my voice still quivered. "Our Zhang family has only had one male descendant per generation. What were you thinking?" I demanded, my voice rising with each word. Zhang Yong lowered his head, his voice growing smaller and smaller. "At that time, when Xiao Wei was born, my mother-in-law's family made a big fuss. They insisted that the child take his mother's surname, Lin. Xiao Wei's mother even threatened to divorce me if I didn't agree. I really had no choice, so I agreed." Fury boiled within me as I abruptly stood up. "No choice? Are you a man? You can't even protect your own child's surname," I shouted, my voice shaking with anger. "Dad, Zhang Yong tried to explain, but I cut him off. "Do you know how your mother and I have lived all these years? We scrimped and saved to raise you. When you got married, we gave a dowry of 100,000 yuan. When you bought a house, we gave another 200,000 yuan. Your mother even gave up her own life to help you raise your children, and what do we get in return? You can't even keep your own surname?" The more I spoke, the more agitated I became, years of grievances and disappointment pouring out like a dam breaking. Zhang Yong stood there, head down, saying nothing, like a child who had done something wrong. Just then, Chong came out of the bathroom with Xiao Wei trailing behind her. Seeing the tense atmosphere, Chong quickly stepped forward to intervene. "Old Zhang, don't be angry. Let's talk this out calmly," Chong said, her tone soothing. I sneered, "Talk calmly. What else is there to talk about? Our Zhang family's bloodline is cut off. Do you understand that?" Xiao Wei seemed to sense the tension in the air, hiding timidly behind Chong. Chong crouched down and gently said to him, "Xiao Wei, be good. Go play in your room for a while, okay?" After Xiao Wei went into his room, Chong turned to me, her tone calm but firm. "Old Zhang, don't get so worked up. It's very common now for children to take their mother's surname. It's no big deal." I couldn't believe my ears. You knew all along?" I asked, looking at Chong in disbelief. Chong sighed. "Yes, I knew, but I didn't think it was a big deal. What matters is that the child is healthy and happy. The surname doesn't matter." A wave of dizziness washed over me as if the whole world was spinning. My wife, the partner I had been with for 40 years, had also kept this from me. I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness and betrayal. You all kept this from me," I said, my voice filled with pain and anger. "What do you take me for? An old fool?" Zhang Yong tried to explain. "Dad, we didn't mean to keep it from you. We just thought you couldn't handle it, that you'd be angry." "And now?" I interrupted coldly. "Now I'm not angry?" The room fell into a deathly silence. I looked around, suddenly feeling that this home, the place where I had spent so many years building memories, had become unfamiliar. The faces that once brought me comfort and warmth now seemed distant, almost unrecognizable. My son, my wife, they were all standing on the opposite side of a chasm I hadn't even known existed. "I'm going back to the old home," I suddenly declared, my voice firm, resonating with a sense of finality. Zhang Yong and Chong were stunned by my words. "Dad, don't be impulsive," Zhang Yong quickly pleaded, his voice laced with desperation. "Calm down. Let's talk things over." "Talk? What's there to talk about?" I shook my head, feeling a deep weariness settling into my bones. "My opinion doesn't matter anyway." Ignoring their attempts to dissuade me, I turned away from them and began to pack my belongings. Every movement felt heavy, not just from the weight of the items, but from the burden of my emotions. As I placed the last of my belongings into my old, worn-out suitcase, I paused for a moment, taking in the sight of my familiar surroundings. Items that once brought me joy now felt meaningless. With my bag slung over my shoulder, I walked out of the house without looking back. The door closed behind me with a soft click, a sound that felt like the final punctuation mark on this chapter of my life. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air greeted me, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere I had just left behind. I walked along the road, each step feeling heavier than the last, but also filled with a strange sense of determination. The sky was getting darker, and the shadows around me lengthened, but I didn't falter. I didn't know what awaited me at the end of this journey, but I knew I had to go back, to the place where my roots were, where I felt grounded. Memories of my hometown flooded my mind, the narrow streets, the small, tightly knit community, the simple, peaceful life I once knew. It was a place where everyone knew each other, where life moved at a slower pace, unburdened by the complexities and betrayals of the modern world. It was a place where I had always felt a deep sense of belonging, a place that now called out to me like a beacon in the night. As I walked, I thought of my younger days, of the dreams I had once held, of the simple joys that had filled my life before the weight of responsibilities and expectations took over. I thought of my parents, of the values they had instilled in me, values that now seemed out of place in this new world. I reached the edge of the town as the night fully settled in, the stars twinkling faintly above, like distant memories scattered across the sky. The familiar scent of earth and old wood filled my senses as I approached the old house that had been in our family for generations. It stood there, weathered but sturdy, like a silent guardian of my past. I opened the creaky door and stepped inside. The air inside was cool, carrying the faint scent of age and memories long past. The house was just as I had left it, the furniture covered with dust sheets, the walls adorned with old photographs that seemed to watch over me with quiet understanding. I walked to the living room and sank into the old armchair by the window, the one where my father used to sit and tell me stories of our ancestors, of their struggles and triumphs, of how they had built this home with their own hands. As I sat there, I felt a sense of peace slowly washing over me, like the gentle waves of the sea. But beneath that peace, there was still a deep, gnawing pain, a pain that I knew would take time to heal. The betrayal I felt from my son and wife was not something that could be easily forgotten. It was a wound that cut deep, one that would leave a scar on my heart. Yet, as I sat in that quiet old house, I also began to feel a small glimmer of hope. Perhaps, in returning to my roots, I could find a way to heal, to rebuild myself from the inside out. Perhaps, in the solitude of my hometown, I could rediscover the man I once was, the man I had lost somewhere along the way. The night grew deeper, and the house around me settled into silence. I closed my eyes, letting the memories and emotions of the day fade into the background. For now, all I wanted was to rest, to let the familiar comfort of my old home cradle me to sleep. Tomorrow I would begin again, alone, but not lost. The road ahead might be uncertain, but I knew that I had the strength to walk it, one step at a time. Because no matter how far I had strayed, I was finally home. And perhaps, just perhaps in time, my family would find their way back to me too. All right, we'll pause here for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope today's content resonated with you. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so we can be with you every day. Let's continue to grow together, find happiness together, and share the journey of life together. See you next time.